May we all humbly bow down to all graces of all Buddhas, Mahabuddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, Mahapacceka Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Mahabodhisattvas, Arahants, Maha-Arahants, the grace of Luangพ่อ โพสีสุริยะ Khemarato, all the Buddha seeds, all the embodiments of the Mahabuddhas and Mahabodhisattvas, the grace of fathers and mothers of all lifetimes, please preside over. We would like to declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, sounds, smells, taste, touches, and shapes, mental elements, sensual pleasures, enjoyments, blissful states, and all states of mind, all the spiritual attainments. May we humbly declare removal and cancellation of all deluded desires and expectations within vengeance, revenges, harbor thoughts to get back to someone, all the curses, all the spells, all the mind powers that have been used with the projection, with the purposes, with an aim to gain, to get, to have, to be, to become, or not to gain, not to get, not to have, not to gain, not to obtain, not to become. We would like to declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within all types of relationships, whether it is in families, with fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, husbands and wives, friends or enemies, relatives, siblings, ancestors, those kind supporters in our lives. They are only existing in our relationships temporarily and only to pay back each other with our karmic debts, which is good karma or bad karma, or neutral karma. May we humbly declare removal and cancellation, renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within all types of spiritual practices, for mindfulness, concentrations, contemplations, special insights, meditative absorptions, wisdoms, supernatural powers, authoritative powers, and all types of spiritual attainments, just for the sake of oneself, for one's own liberation, for one's own sake, for gaining, for obtaining, for attainment. We would like to declare removal and cancellation and renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations for worldly honors, for worldly gains, and for spiritual attainments, just for the sake of one's own liberation, as mentioned before. These can only be so narrow. It is not extensive like all the great perfections. It is not helpful, not benefits the whole, but only for the sake of oneself, which is limited. We would like to declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within thoughts, memories, recalls, feelings, emotions, awareness that has been fabricated with desires, delusive attachments, and delusions for the purpose of gaining or losing something for the sake of oneself. We would like to declare removal and cancellation of all such selfishness, even it is for only the family, for the nations, but it's still limited, or even for the earth, it's still limited, or even for the sake of this galaxy is also still limited. There are uncountable galaxies here. Let's be extensive, not just for the sake of one's own gains, one's own greed, one's own sake. May we humbly declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within the ideas of living the life, lifestyles, attitudes of living, traditions, customs, worldly values, one's own values, opinions and meanings, dogmas, doctrines, religions, belief values. They condition us, unable to open extensively, to help everything and everyone to be open further than these conditions. We would like to declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded fixation with dualities, positive, negative, good, bad, right, wrong, dark, white, darkness, brightness, goodness, badness, and all types of dualities that still remains be fixated in our mind. We would like to declare removal and cancellation of all of these from now on and forever, so that we enable to open up extensively for the whole, for everything and beyond, with the infinite force that can brighten out and dissolve all kind of limitations of the mind. And from now on, we request forgiveness from all graces for whatever rejection we have used through our opinions and meanings towards the graces, towards their words. We would like to ask and request for forgiveness for any actions we have done in chasing those with great blessed fortunes to be far away from their homelands and facing difficulties, or the karma of hurting and harming anyone, torturing anyone, chaining anyone, putting anyone in limited places, hurting and harming and offending anyone physically making them unable to move normally, unable to speak normally, or unable to think normally. We humbly request forgiveness for all cases of offensive karma towards all graces, blocking anyone to be far away from the graces. Differentiate from their words, distorting their words, grasping their words for the sake of one's own liberation, oppressing oneself with certain kind of practices, making the mind and the body in difficulties for liberation of suffering, distorting the true words of the great perfection, which is only know, know to know itself. Everything is from know to know itself. Therefore, there is no such thing as this is it or this isn't it. Before yes and no with anything, there is nothing. May all karma be released and removed and liberated from now on and forever. Ahosi, Ahosi, Ahosi. So let's all of us open up, open the palms. Beyond opening, use the key words. Everything is from not attached to the non-attachment itself. Everything is from nothing in anything. Scatter this true essence in all directions, above, below, left and right, in front, behind, the back. Without targets, without destinations, throughout the space. This is the great compassion that is shared through the infinite force, which is, in other words, is called the purification of the emptiness. Emptiness that is not emptiness. Therefore, it is unlimited. Therefore, it can cleanse and purify everything, all included. Benefits is for all, not just for oneself. And this will purify the mind that always dwells within itself in any states that it wants to hold on to. And that is the habitual patterns that it has been created constantly. And that's commonly called nature of the mind, which is actually impure. And it has been doing it for the sake of itself. Actually, for the sake of its desire, delusions, and delusive attachment. The mind itself, it hasn't tried to gain anything for itself. Everything that is arising is ending by itself, coming and going by itself. It doesn't fabricate on top with desires, with expectations or projection. But the desires grasp any state and try to hold on to that state, holding on to that feeling, holding on to that emotion for the sake of grasping and grasping for more. However, the mind itself hasn't done that. It's empty of itself because it's always arising and ceasing on its own, coming and going on its own. So it has never ever hold on to anything. But the desire and delusive attachment and delusion does it. Holding on, grasp for the sake of itself. And therefore is called ego self. It's commonly called ego self. But the ego itself is the desire. Delusive attachment and delusion is not the mind. The mind doesn't do that. And the so-called mind is just an assumed word to call this medium, this vessel only. So the arising is also ceasing itself. Therefore, anything that is sustained, maintained, dwelled, sunken in, drowned in, is the desire that is doing it, and the delusive attachment to the desire that is doing it, the delusion that is doing it, because it wants what it wants, and it has the habit to hold on to anything that is coming in and not want to let it cease by itself. That's the problem. So whenever we are not opening through the infinite force, we are in that fabrication. We are in that karma creation. We are in that realms of existence of the mind. Whether it is the arising of certain kinds of spiritual attainments like stillness, equanimity, indifference, this is also a state that is coming and going. If you hold on to it, it's because you desire for it. Therefore, you are deludedly trying to possess it. What kind of fabrication is that? That is someone there that's trying. This someone is the desire, is the domination of the desire and delusive attachments and delusion. That is the someone. So be clear. Be clear to use the key words to open up constantly so that we are not being spelled. Okay? Samsara is being spelled by desires, delusions, and delusive attachments all the time. Therefore, we are going to open up all the time through the great compassion of the infinite force. All the time. Going against their values. Devalue instead of giving values. Because all the values they are given is a delusive attachment and delusions. Therefore, we need to cleanse this. Let's help cleanse it. Open up. Everything is from that which is not about anything. Therefore, we cannot put values to anything. Or not even put values to anything. Infinite means infinite, period. It cannot be trapped by the narrow mind. It cannot be conditioned by anything. It is unconditional. Period. And that's the only thing that we can give. It is a divine force. It is infinite power. And we can do it. And automatically, the environment will open up all the same. Just like when you listen to something funny, you laugh. So when you enter a room with the infinite force, everything and everyone will be open accordingly through the infinite force. This is something that is ungraspable and leaving no trace. Therefore, it's something that you cannot be teaching. You can't teach this. This is something only about cut through, cutting and cutting and cutting. It's a natural cutting. Cutting the fabrication of the desires, delusions, and delusive attachments. It is happening naturally when we scatter the true essence of the great compassion. That which is not about being limited or unlimited. And we proceed with everything simultaneously. So let's open up. Open up beyond opening. Through the mind that is unconditional. And this unconditional force can reach everything, whether they are the beings or something that is not living beings, all included. So, the infinite force will clear out all about oneself for the sake of one's own wants, for the sake of one's own gain, for the sake of one's own greed. These including one's own fellows, one's own families, one's own nations, one's own global populations, one's own galaxy populations. Let's extending further than this. This is too narrow. Opening beyond opening. Awakening beyond awakening. Everything is from that, which has nothing to do with attachment, detachment, or non-attachment. This will clear out, cleanse, and purify all desires, delusions, and elusive attachments. Without having to check the outcome. This is like blessing. Blessing without traces, without words. Yet we need to use reminders. So all and everything can hear. And when they hear, they can act accordingly. Just like this vessel.